Var Atul despised these ceremonies. The Commonwealth Council always made such a spectacle of inducting new species, as if adding another weak-willed, soft-bodied race to their ranks was cause for celebration. He slouched in his seat, towering over the delegates around him, his scaled skin reflecting the ambient light in ripples of deep crimson and amber. The massive chamber aboard Nexus Station hummed with excited chatter from dozens of species, each one more pathetic than the last in Atul's eyes. None of them understood what it meant to be forged in fire. None knew the constant struggle that shaped his people, the Var. Their homeworld, Vargath, was a crucible of extremes. Savage windstorms that could strip flesh from bone, active volcanoes spewing toxic gases, predators evolved with multiple layers of teeth and claws that could pierce the toughest natural armor. Even the plants fought back, with thorns that delivered neurological toxins and roots that hunted for nutrients. The Var had not merely survived such a world, they had conquered it. Through countless wars for scarce resources, through brutal natural selection that eliminated the weak, through technological innovation driven by the urgent need to harness more power, build stronger shelters, create more deadly weapons. They had earned their place among the stars through blood and determination. And yet here, in the Commonwealth Council, they were regarded with suspicion and fear. The warmongers, the savages, the barely civilized brutes. Atul had heard all the whispers. The council tolerated the Var only because excluding them would be more dangerous. Better to keep the predators where you could see them, after all. Atul shifted uncomfortably in his seat, designed for species with completely different anatomies. He was only here because his father, Emperor Krav, had ordered him to witness this induction ceremony and report back. Apparently, this new species was of particular interest. Atul couldn't imagine why. They would be like all the others, soft, conciliatory, eager to join the great galactic community. Pathetic. They say this new species comes from a harsh world too, whispered Jur, the JDH ambassador, sitting beside him. The JTH were one of the few species Atul could tolerate. Not warriors by any means, but at least they had the decency to be direct in their communications. Atul snorted, a sound that made several nearby delegates flinch. Harsh by whose standards? I've heard council species describe worlds as harsh because they have seasonal temperature variations of 15 degrees. Jur's mouth parts twitched in what Atul had come to recognize as amusement. No, I mean genuinely harsh. Some are saying these humans might be, well, somewhat like the various. Now that was interesting. Atul straightened slightly in his seat. Another Deathworld species? Impossible. The Var were unique, a singularity in the galaxy. No other intelligent species had evolved under such punishing conditions. That was why they were superior. We shall see. Atul rumbled, suddenly more attentive as the chamber lights dimmed and the Commonwealth High Speaker approached the central podium. Esteemed delegates. The High Speaker's voice reverberated through the chamber, translated simultaneously into hundreds of languages. Today we welcome representatives of a newly discovered intelligent species who have achieved faster-than-light travel independently. Please welcome the delegation from Earth, the humans. Atul watched as the delegation entered through the grand archway. His initial impression was one of disappointment. They were bipedal, roughly humanoid, lacking any obvious natural weapons or armor. Their skin appeared soft and vulnerable, varying in color from pale beige to rich brown. Nothing remarkable, but then he noticed something. Their posture, their gait, the way their eyes scanned the room. These were not the movements of prey. There was a confidence there, a readiness. And their physical form, while unimpressive at first glance, showed signs of development under higher than standard gravity. Dense musculature, sturdy skeletal structure, subtle, but unmistakable to someone who knew what to look for. The lead human stepped forward, a female by Atul's estimation, though he wasn't yet familiar with their sexual dimorphism. She was of average height for her group, with dark hair pulled back tightly and a bearing that screamed military training to Atul's experienced eye. I am Marina Carter, commander in the United Earth Defense Force and appointed ambassador to the Commonwealth, she announced, her voice carrying clearly. On behalf of humanity, I thank you for this opportunity to join your community of worlds. The High Speaker nodded benevolently. We welcome you, Ambassador Carter. Please, share with us the story of your people. A holographic display illuminated above the central floor as Marina Carter began to speak. Earth, or Terra, as some call it, is a planet of extremes. 70% of our surface is covered in water, with the remaining landmass divided between scorching deserts, frozen tundras, dense jungles, and everything in between. Our planet experiences devastating natural disasters regularly. Hurricanes that can level entire cities, earthquakes that swallow communities whole, volcanic eruptions that darken our skies for years. The hologram shifted to show these cataclysmic events, images of destruction that made many delegates murmur in distress. Atul leaned forward, his interest genuinely piqued now. But Earth's challenges extend beyond its natural environment, Carter continued. Our evolutionary history is one of constant adaptation and competition. For most of our existence, humans were not the dominant species. We evolved as both predator and prey, forced to develop intelligence, tool use, and social cooperation simply to survive. The hologram now displayed primitive humans hunting massive beasts with crude spears, huddling together in caves, defending against predators with fire. Limited resources led to competition between human groups, sparking conflicts that grew increasingly sophisticated and deadly as our technology advanced. The display showed the evolution of human warfare, from clubs and arrows to gunpowder weapons, mechanized vehicles, aerial bombardment, and finally, nuclear devastation. Our most devastating global conflict, which we call World War II, resulted in the deaths of over 70 million individuals, approximately 3% of our global population at that time, in just 6 years. Gasps echoed throughout the chamber. Such casualty figures were unheard of for most council species. Civilized beings didn't engage in such wholesale slaughter. Atul heard the delegate from Mera actually retch in horror. Following this conflict, we developed weapons capable of destroying all life on our planet many times over. We stood at the precipice of self-annihilation multiple times. The hologram showed mushroom clouds blooming over cities, leaving nothing but devastation in their wake. The chamber had fallen completely silent. But Carter's voice softened slightly. We also developed something else. The hologram shifted to show humans building together, creating art, playing music, reaching out to the stars. We learned to channel our competitive drive into collaboration. We united our planet. Not perfectly, not without setbacks, but enough to reach beyond our atmosphere and eventually achieve faster-than-light travel. Atul remained transfixed. These humans had nearly destroyed themselves, yet here they stood. They had faced extinction-level challenges, not just from their environment, but from their own nature, and had survived. Perhaps Jur was right. These humans were not like the other soft species of the Commonwealth. Without conscious thought, Atul rose to his feet, the traditional VAR gesture of respect for a worthy opponent or story. The movement was so sudden that several nearby delegates flinched away, and the chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Avar showing respect to another species was unprecedented. Marina Carter paused mid-sentence, her eyes finding Atul's across the chamber. For a brief moment, something passed between them, recognition perhaps. Then she inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement before continuing her presentation. Atul remained standing until she finished speaking. When he finally sat down, Jur leaned over. Well, the JDH diplomat whispered, I believe you just caused quite the diplomatic incident. Atul's mouth curled into what passed for a VAR smile. Perhaps these council meetings won't be so boring after all. Following the induction ceremony, the grand reception hall buzzed with activity. Representatives from dozens of worlds clustered in small groups, many casting nervous glances toward the human delegation. Marina Carter moved through the crowd with practiced diplomacy, accepting greetings and answering questions with measured responses. But Atul noticed how the other species maintained a subtle distance, their body language betraying their unease. He observed from a corner, nursing a drink that burned pleasantly in his 3 stomachs. The humans were being treated much like the Var had been upon their introduction to the Commonwealth, with polite caution masking profound discomfort. These gentle species feared what they could not understand. Creatures forged in environments where survival itself was a daily battle. After some deliberation, Atul pushed away from the wall and approached the human ambassador. Conversation died as he passed, other delegates clearing a path. The Var had that effect. Marina Carter noticed his approach immediately, her posture subtly shifting. Not cowering as most species did, but preparing, weight balanced, hands free, eyes alert. Another point of interest. Ambassador Carter, Atul said, his translator rendering his guttural language into the humans. I am Var Atul, son of Emperor Krav, representative of the Var Dominion. She met his gaze unflinchingly. A pleasure, Representative Atul. Your gesture during my presentation was noted. I understand standing among your people signifies respect. Atul tilted his head, impressed she'd researched Var customs. It does. Your account of Earth was unexpected. May I ask why? He gestured to an unoccupied seating area, and after a moment's consideration, she nodded. They moved away from the crowd, drawing curious stares. Once seated, Atul on a reinforced bench designed for heavier species, Marina in a standard chair that placed her at eye level with him despite their height difference. He addressed her question. The Commonwealth is primarily composed of species that evolved on what we term garden worlds, planets with stable climates, abundant resources, limited environmental hazards, and predictable natural cycles. Their evolutionary paths rewarded cooperation over competition, communication over conflict. And the Var did not evolve in such an environment, Marina observed. Vargith is what scientists classify as a death world, a planet where environmental conditions are so hostile that survival itself is an achievement. Until today, I believed we were the only sentient Deathworlders in the Commonwealth. Marina's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. And now you're not so sure. Your description of Earth, the natural disasters, the evolutionary pressures, the conflicts, suggests a world that, while perhaps not as continuously hostile as Vargith, certainly qualifies as a death world by Commonwealth standards. She nodded slowly. We have a saying on Earth, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Our history is one of adaptation to adversity. As is ours, Atul replied, though I suspect our methods differ. How so? Atul extended one clawed hand, the scales gleaming under the reception hall lights. The Var evolved physical adaptations, reinforced skeletons, protective scales, redundant organ systems, enhanced strength. Our bodies are living weapons and armor combined. Humans took a different evolutionary path, Marina conceded. We're physically unimpressive by many standards. No natural weapons or armor. Limited sensory capabilities. But we compensated with adaptability, endurance, and these. She tapped her temple. Your cognitive abilities. Partially, but also our social structures. Humans are tribal by nature. We form bonds, communities. We survive not by becoming individually stronger, but by working together. Atul made a sound that his translator didn't attempt to convert. The Var understand cooperation when necessary, but our history is primarily one of competition. The strongest rule as they should. Yet here you are, participating in an interspecies council rather than attempting to conquer it, Marina observed with surprising boldness. Instead of taking offense, Atul found himself amused. Practical considerations. Even the Var cannot stand against hundreds of unified worlds, regardless of how soft their inhabitants might be. Pragmatism, then, another trait our species share. Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of a Malosian delegate, a species known for their diplomatic role within the Commonwealth. The Malosian bowed slightly. Pardon the interruption, Ambassador Carter, but the Ardani delegation has requested an introduction. Marina nodded. Of course. She turned back to Atul. Perhaps we could continue this conversation another time. Representative Atul, I find our cultural exchange enlightening. Atul rose to his full height, towering over both the human and the Melosian. Indeed, the VAR delegation quarters are in Section 47, Level 8. You would be welcome there, should you wish to continue our discussion. The Melosian's translucent skin paled noticeably at this unprecedented invitation, but Marina simply nodded. I look forward to it. As she walked away, Atul found himself wondering what other surprises these humans might hold. For the first time since joining the Commonwealth Diplomatic Corps, he felt genuinely curious about another species. The VAR diplomatic quarters were Spartan by most standards. Heavy gravity generators created a simulation of Vargatha's punishing pull. The temperature was maintained at levels most species would find uncomfortably warm. Lighting was kept dim to accommodate VAR's sensitivity to certain spectrums. The furniture was utilitarian, designed for durability rather than comfort. When Marina Carter arrived the following day, Atul was impressed that she entered without hesitation despite the warning signs posted outside. Most non-VAR couldn't tolerate the environmental conditions for more than a few minutes. "You're not using an environmental suit," he observed as she entered the common area where he waited. Marina's movements were more labored under the increased gravity, but her stride remained steady. "I wanted to experience your conditions firsthand. Earth's gravity varies by location, but averages about 1 g. This feels like 1.3 g perhaps." 1.4, Atul corrected. "Vargath averages 1.5 g at the equator. We've moderated it slightly for diplomatic purposes." She nodded, taking a seat on one of the stone benches. Atul noticed the sheen of perspiration on her skin, a cooling mechanism he recalled from the briefing materials on humans. "I've brought something," Marina said, reaching into a small case she carried. She produced 2 containers. "A cultural exchange. This is a beverage from Earth called whiskey. I understand the VAR have similar fermentation processes." Atul's interest was piqued. "Indeed, we distill a drink called Krev from fungi that grow in our volcanic caverns." He gestured to a cabinet, from which he retrieved a container of viscous amber liquid and 2 appropriate vessels. They exchanged drinks, each cautiously sampling the other's offering. The human whiskey burned pleasantly in Atul's fur stomach, though it lacked the metallic undertones he preferred. Marina's reaction to Krev was more dramatic. She coughed once before regaining her composure. "Potent," she managed. "It dissolves internal parasites," Atul explained, which earned him a surprised laugh from the human. As they drank, their conversation deepened. Marina described Earth's varied biomes, from scorching deserts with temperatures exceeding 50 degrees Celsius to frozen wastelands reaching minus 80 degrees Celsius. "Humans have inhabited nearly every corner of our world," she explained. "We've built cities in deserts, in Arctic regions, in rainforests, on mountains, and even floating on our oceans." "Adaptability indeed," Atul acknowledged. "Vargath has less environmental variation. It is consistently hostile rather than variably so. Our challenge was not adaptation to different conditions, but survival under constant threat." "Were those threats specifically?" Marina asked. Atul described the megafauna of Vargath, apex predators with redundant biological systems that made them nearly impossible to kill, swarms of airborne parasites that could strip flesh from bone in minutes, plants with neurotoxins potent enough to kill with a single touch. "Our ancestors survived by developing technology alongside biological evolution," he explained. "Those who could craft better weapons, build stronger shelters, create more effective medicines, they survived and passed on their knowledge." Marina nodded. "Similar patterns in human prehistory. But our deadliest predator ultimately became other humans. Intertribal warfare." "Precisely. Competition for resources, territorial disputes, ideological differences. Human history is written in blood, much of it our own." Atul leaned forward. "Your presentation mentioned a conflict, World War II, with casualties in the millions. Such numbers are difficult to comprehend." Marina's expression darkened. "That was just one of many. Our weapons evolved faster than our wisdom. We created tools of destruction capable of rendering entire continents uninhabitable. Yet you survived, barely at times. There were moments in our history when extinction seemed not just possible, but imminent. Atul considered this. The VAR had a similar crisis point. The resource wars lasted 3 centuries and reduced our global population by 60%. The environmental damage took generations to repair. How did you end it? Unification under the strongest leader. Emperor Drav, my great-grandfather, conquered the remaining factions and established the Dominion. Under singular rule, we rebuilt and eventually reached the stars. Marina Nojid. Humans took a different approach. We established international bodies, created treaties, built frameworks for cooperation while maintaining individual sovereignty for nations. Inefficient, Atul observed. Perhaps, but it preserved our diversity of thought, of culture, of approach. That diversity has proven to be one of our greatest strengths. Their conversation continued for hours, comparing evolutionary pressures, historical conflicts, technological development paths. Despite their physiological differences and contrasting social structures, Atul found an unexpected kinship with this human. Both species understood what it meant to fight for every breath, to consider survival itself a victory. As their meeting concluded, Marina rose from her seat, moving more fluidly now despite the gravity, her body already beginning to adapt. This exchange has been valuable, Representative Atul. I hope we can continue it. Atul stood as well, performing the traditional VAR salute, right fist pressed to left shoulder. You honor me with your resilience, Ambassador Carter. The VAR quarters remain open to you. After she left, Atul stared at the empty container of human whiskey. His father had instructed him to assess the potential threat these newcomers posed. Now he faced a complex question. What represented greater danger? A species that resembled the VAR in their capacity for violence, or one that had mastered that capacity through means the VAR had never fully explored. Emperor Krov's holographic image dominated the secure communication chamber, his massive form dwarfing even Atul's substantial frame. The connection to Vargath, hundreds of light years distant, carried the Emperor's displeased rumble with perfect clarity. You've been spending considerable time with this human ambassador, Krov stated, eyes narrowing to vertical slits. Explain yourself. Atul maintained the formal stance of a warrior before his commander. I am following your directive to assess their capabilities and intentions, Emperor. Direct engagement has proven most effective. And what have you learned? The humans are indeed Deathworlders, though their planet presents different challenges than Vargath. They evolved as endurance predators with exceptional cognitive abilities rather than through physical adaptations. Krov's scales shifted color slightly, indicating interest despite his stern demeanor. Their military capacity? Substantial, though differently structured than ours. They've developed weaponry capable of planetary destruction, but have established elaborate systems to prevent their use. Their conflicts tend to be limited in scope, but fought with intensity. Are they a threat? Atul considered his response carefully. Potentially, they lack our physical strength, but compensate with technological innovation and strategic thinking. More importantly, they unite in the face of external threats despite internal divisions. Would they ally with the Commonwealth against us? Uncertain. They share more physiological and historical commonalities with us than with Garden-Worlders, but they value the diplomatic approach the Commonwealth represents. The Emperor's image flickered as he moved closer to the transmission point on his end. Some of my advisors suggest we should push for restrictions on human integration into Commonwealth structures. Others recommend a preemptive display of force to establish dominance. Atul felt an unexpected surge of objection to both proposals, but kept his tone neutral. Either action might provoke unnecessary conflict, Emperor. The humans are still establishing their position within the Commonwealth. Continued observation would be prudent. You sound protective of these humans, my son. Krov's voice carried a dangerous edge. I am protective of our interests, Atul countered. Miscalculating our approach to humanity could prove costly. After a long moment, the Emperor nodded. Continue your assessment. But remember where your loyalties lie. Always, Father. As the transmission ended, Atul was left with an uncomfortable realization. His father's concerns mirrored discussions happening within the human delegation. Just yesterday, Marina had mentioned resistance from her military leadership regarding close cooperation with the VAR. They see your species as unpredictable and potentially dangerous, she had explained during their third meeting. The combat capabilities of the average VAR soldier exceed those of our elite troops, and your natural armor makes you resistant to many of our conventional weapons. Your commanders fear us, Atul had concluded with satisfaction. They respect your capabilities, Marina had corrected, just as they would any significant military force. It's their job to prepare for worst-case scenarios. Now, leaving the communication chamber, Atul found himself in an unexpected position. Both his people and the humans harbored mutual suspicions, yet he and Marina had begun building something resembling trust. The diplomatic implications were complex, the personal implications even more so. His musings were interrupted by a priority alert on his communication device. An emergency session of the Commonwealth Security Council had been called, and the VAR delegation's presence was specifically requested. The reason was listed as concerns regarding potential military alliance. When Atul arrived at the council chamber, the atmosphere was tense. Representatives from 24 major Commonwealth species were already seated, with the High Speaker looking uncharacteristically grave. Marina and the human delegation were positioned on one side of the chamber, their expressions carefully neutral. Representative Atul, the High Speaker acknowledged as he entered. Please be seated so we may begin. Once Atul had taken his place, the High Speaker activated the central holographic display. It showed records of meetings between VAR and human delegates, including private conversations between Atul and Marina. The Council has received concerning intelligence suggesting a clandestine military alliance being formed between the VAR Dominion and Earth forces, the High Speaker announced. Given the documented, aggressive tendencies of both species, this represents a potentially destabilizing development for Commonwealth security. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Atul's scales darkened with anger at the surveillance and accusation. What evidence supports this claim? Marina asked, her voice steady despite the tension. The Ardani representative stood. Multiple meetings between your delegations, exchange of cultural artifacts, discussions of military capabilities and historical conflicts. The pattern suggests strategic alignment. Cultural exchange is explicitly encouraged by Commonwealth Charter, Marina countered. As new members, humans are particularly motivated to understand all Commonwealth species, including the various. The Ardani's feathered crest flattened against their skull. Your discussions have focused disproportionately on military matters. When Deathworlders meet, survival strategies are natural topics of conversation. Atul interjected, his voice rumbling through the chamber. Just as garden worlders discuss pollination techniques and symbiotic relationships ad nauseum, several delegates bristled at his dismissive tone. The concern, the High Speaker clarified, is that two species with demonstrated capacity for violence might combine their capabilities to the detriment of the greater Commonwealth. Marina stood, walking to the center of the chamber. With respect, this concern reveals the very prejudice that makes Commonwealth integration challenging for species like humans and the VAR. You assume that because we evolved in harsh environments, violence is our default approach to interspecies relations. History suggests the Ardani began, but Marina continued. History shows adaptation to circumstances. Both humans and VAR developed military capabilities because our respective environments demanded it for survival. Both species have since developed diplomatic capabilities because the interstellar community demands it for advancement. Atul moved to join her at the center, causing several delegates to shift nervously in their seats. Standing together, the human and VAR created a striking visual contrast. One small but confident, the other massive and imposing. The Commonwealth was founded on principles of diversity and mutual benefit, Atul stated. Yet some species are welcomed with open arms while others face perpetual suspicion. Is this the equality your charter proclaims? The High Speaker's appendages fluttered in discomfort. No one questions your right to membership, but security concerns must be addressed transparently. Then let us be transparent, Marina proposed. Instead of speculating about clandestine alliances, let us demonstrate the actual nature of human-var relations. Atul glanced at Marina, his expression questioning. A cultural exchange exhibition, she explained, addressing both Atul and the broader council. Open to all Commonwealth delegates. A showcase of human and VAR achievements. Not just military, but scientific, artistic, philosophical. And what would this prove? Asked the Malosian representative skeptically. That interaction between our species extends far beyond military matters, Marina replied, and that we have much to offer the Commonwealth beyond our capacity for violence. The council chambers erupted in discussion. After several minutes, the High Speaker called for order. This proposal has merit, they acknowledged. Representative Atul, does the VAR delegation support this initiative? Atul had not anticipated this development, but he recognized its strategic value. The VAR will participate, he confirmed, with full transparency. Then it is decided, the High Speaker concluded. The exhibition will proceed under council observation. This session is adjourned. As the delegates dispersed, Marina approached Atul in the corridor outside. That went better than expected, she murmured. A clever tactical maneuver, Atul acknowledged. But now we must deliver on your promise. Concerned about showcasing VAR culture beyond weapons technology? There was a hint of challenge in her tone. Atul's mouth curled in the VAR approximation of a smile. Not at all, Ambassador. You may find we have depths you haven't yet glimpsed. I'm counting on it, she replied. Because right now, the entire future of human-VAR relations, and possibly our positions within the Commonwealth, depends on proving we're more than the monsters they fear. The cultural exhibition was hastily arranged in one of Nexus Station's largest public spaces, a multi-tiered atrium typically used for Commonwealth celebrations. For 3 standard days, both delegations worked ceaselessly to transform the space, creating distinct but complementary zones showcasing their respective cultures. Marina surveyed the human section with critical eyes as final preparations were completed. Displays highlighted Earth's diverse biomes, artistic traditions, scientific achievements, and philosophical schools of thought. A central holographic projection showed the planet itself, rotating slowly to reveal its varied landscapes. What do you think? She asked as Atul approached. Will it convince them we're more than warmongers? The VAR representative studied the exhibits thoughtfully. It demonstrates complexity, which is a start. The Commonwealth tends to categorize species simplistically, predator or prey, aggressive or passive, threat or non-threat. Nuance disrupts their comfortable narratives. Marina nodded toward the VAR section. Speaking of disrupting narratives, your exhibits are not what I expected. The VAR displays were indeed surprising. Beyond the anticipated demonstrations of military technology and physical prowess were intricate stone sculptures, complex mathematical models of Vargatha's orbital patterns, and even a small garden of bioluminescent fungi cultivated in controlled conditions. Survival requires more than combat skills, Atul explained. VAR artisans carve stories into stone that outlast generations. Our mathematicians calculate resource distributions that prevent unnecessary conflicts. Our botanists develop cultivars that can grow in the most hostile environments. It's beautiful, Marina admitted, in a distinctly VAR way. High praise from species that evolved on a world with actual aesthetic luxuries, Atul replied, but his tone held no bitterness. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of the first Commonwealth delegates. The exhibition was officially opening, and with it came the true test of their diplomatic gambit. Throughout the day, representatives from dozens of species filtered through the exhibits, their reactions ranging from cautious interest to undisguised skepticism. Marina and Atul moved among them, explaining displays, answering questions, and subtly emphasizing the common threads between their seemingly disparate cultures. At a demonstration of human medical technology, Marina explained to a group of Malosian delegates how treatments developed for extreme environments, pressure chambers, radiation therapies, artificial organ replacements, had applications for various species. Our challenges pushed us to develop solutions that benefit everyone, she concluded. Nearby, Atul guided another group through an exhibit on VAR architectural techniques. Our buildings must withstand seismic activity, extreme temperatures, and atmospheric toxins, he explained. These principles could be adapted for Commonwealth outposts on less hospitable worlds. As the exhibition continued into its second day, Marina noticed a subtle shift in the attitudes of visiting delegates. The initial tension had begun to ease, replaced by genuine curiosity. Several species that had previously avoided direct interaction with both humans and VAR were now engaging actively with the exhibits. During a brief lull, she found Atul observing a human music performance, a string quartet playing a melancholy piece by Barber. "You appreciate our music?" she asked, joining him. "It's mathematically interesting," he replied. "The patterns create emotional responses despite having no practical function." Marina smiled slightly. Not everything needs practical function. "A luxury of garden worlds," Atul said, but without his usual derision. "Perhaps. But even on Vargath, you created art." She gestured toward the VAR sculptures. "Beauty finds a way, even in the harshest environments." Atul was silent for a moment. "My father would consider such sentiments weakness." "And what do you consider them?" Before he could answer, they were approached by Jur, the JDH diplomat who had first mentioned humans to Atul. "Fascinating exhibition," Jur said, mouthparts moving in what Marina had learned was a gesture of approval. "The Security Council is impressed by the range of contributions both your species could offer. Has the Alliance concern been addressed?" Atul asked directly. Jur's translucent skin flustered briefly. "Mostly. Some still worry that Deathworlders might naturally align against Garden Worlders, given your shared experiences." "Shared experiences don't necessarily create shared agendas," Marina pointed out. "Humans maintain alliances with many different types of civilizations based on mutual benefit, not evolutionary history. The VAR approach is similar," Atul added, surprising both Marina and Jur. "Strength recognizes strength, regardless of its form." Jur seemed satisfied with this response. "The High Speaker wishes to address both delegations this evening. I believe the outcome will be favorable." After the JTH diplomat departed, Marina turned to Atul. "Did you just imply the VAR would consider alliances with non-Deathworlders?" Atul's scales shifted through patterns that Marina couldn't fully interpret. "Perhaps this exhibition has been educational for more than just the Commonwealth delegates." The final evening of the exhibition culminated in a formal gathering attended by representatives from every major Commonwealth species. The High Speaker stood at the center of the atrium, flanked by members of the Security Council. "Over these past days, we have witnessed an unprecedented cultural exchange," they began. When concerns were raised about potential military alignment between humans and VAR, many feared such an alliance could threaten Commonwealth stability. The speaker paused, their gaze moving between Marina and Atul, who stood with their respective delegations. "What we have observed instead is something more complex and ultimately more valuable. Two species evolved under harsh but different conditions, finding common ground not just in their capacity for aggression, but in their drive for innovation, adaptation, and yes, even beauty." A ripple of agreement moved through the assembled delegates. The Commonwealth was founded on the principle that diversity strengthens us all. We acknowledge that this principle has not always been applied equally to species whose evolutionary paths differ significantly from the majority. This has been a failing on our part. Marina felt a surge of hope at these words. Beside her, several human delegates exchanged surprised glances. "Therefore," the High Speaker continued, "the Security Council has unanimously voted to establish a new interspecies cultural and scientific exchange program, with Earth and Vargath as founding participants. This program will facilitate ongoing cooperation while maintaining full transparency to address security concerns. The announcement was met with widespread approval from the assembled delegates. Even those species that had been most vocal about their concerns seemed satisfied with this solution. As the formal proceedings concluded and the gathering transitioned to a more relaxed social event, Marina made her way through the crowd to where Atul stood somewhat apart, observing the proceedings. A successful outcome, she noted, joining him. Indeed, the Commonwealth saves face, security concerns are addressed through transparency measures, and both our species gain increased access to shared resources. You make it sound very calculated. Atul turned to face her directly. Is it not? Diplomacy is warfare by other means. Or perhaps warfare is diplomacy that has failed, Marina countered. Either way, I'd count this as a victory for both our species. The beginning of a victory, Atul corrected. My father will have reservations about increased Commonwealth involvement in VAR affairs. And some of my superiors will worry about sharing too much with potential competitors, Marina acknowledged. But they'll adapt. That's what our species do best, isn't it? Atul's scales rippled in agreement. Perhaps that is the true lesson here. Adaptation takes many forms, not all of them obvious at first glance. As the reception continued around them, Marina reached into her pocket and produced a small metal flask. A final cultural exchange, she offered. Atul accepted with a nod, taking a careful sip of the human whiskey before returning it. To adaptation, he rumbled. And to unexpected allies, Marina added, completing the toast. Later that night, as the exhibition was being dismantled, Atul received an urgent communication request for Vargath. His father's image appeared, expression unreadable even to Atul's experienced eye. The reports of this exhibition have reached me, Emperor Krav stated without preamble. Explain yourself. Atul maintained perfect posture as he responded. A diplomatic necessity, Emperor. The Commonwealth had concerns about potential military alliance between VAR and humans. This demonstration of broader cultural exchange neutralized those concerns while maintaining our position of strength. You displayed VAR artistic traditions to these soft species. Krav's tone was dangerously low. Some would consider this revealing weakness. With respect, Father, I revealed nothing that would compromise our security. What I demonstrated was that the VAR are more than simple warriors. We are a complete civilization with depths the Commonwealth had not previously recognized. Krav was silent for a long moment, his scales shifting through patterns that indicated deep thought. And these humans? What is your assessment after this extended interaction? Atul chose his words carefully. They're formidable in ways different from our own. Their physical forms are unimpressive, but their adaptability and strategic thinking compensate significantly. More importantly, they understand, as we do, that strength must be demonstrated to be respected. Would they make useful allies? The question surprised Atul. Potentially, they possess technologies that could benefit the Dominion, particularly in environmental adaptation and medical sciences. And they share our perspective as outsiders within the Commonwealth structure. And would they be dangerous enemies? Undoubtedly, Atul replied without hesitation. They lack our natural weapons, but possess ingenuity and tenacity that make them unpredictable opponents. Emperor Krav leaned closer to the transmission point. Then for now, we cultivate this relationship. The VAR have always respected worthy adversaries. Perhaps these humans can become something more, if they continue to prove their worth. I will maintain contact with their ambassador, Atul confirmed. See that you do. The galaxy is changing, my son. The VAR must adapt, as we always have. The transmission ended, leaving Atul in contemplative silence. His father's cautious approval was unexpected but welcome. The diplomatic path forward remained complex, but for the first time, it held genuine possibilities. The following morning, Marina was overseeing the final packing of human exhibits when her communication device signaled an incoming transmission from Earth Command. She moved to a private area before accepting. General Hawkins appeared on her screen, his weathered face set in its usual stern expression. Ambassador Carter, I've reviewed your reports on this cultural exhibition. And Interesting approach to addressing Commonwealth concerns. Thank you, General. The results speak for themselves. The security investigation has been closed, and we've secured approval for an ongoing exchange program. Yes, about that, Hawkins frowned slightly. Some analysts here have concerns about sharing too much technology with the VAR. Their military capabilities are already substantial. Marina had anticipated this objection. The exchange program has transparency protocols built in specifically to address such concerns. More importantly, establishing cooperative relations with the only other recognized Deathworld species provides us strategic advantages within Commonwealth political structures. You believe the VAR can be trusted? She considered the question carefully. Trust is perhaps the wrong framework, General. The VAR operate on respect and demonstrated capability. They understand power dynamics in ways many Commonwealth species don't. That makes them predictable in certain important ways. And this representative you've been working with, Atul? Your reports mention frequent contact. Representative Atul has been a crucial diplomatic contact. As son of their emperor, he carries significant influence and has shown unexpected openness to human perspectives. Hawkins grunted noncommittally. Command has approved continued development of the relationship, but proceed with caution. Remember that your primary mission remains securing humanity's position within the broader Commonwealth structure. Of course, General. One more thing, Carter. Intelligence suggests the VAR may be facing resource shortages in certain key minerals. This could present leverage opportunities. Marina kept her expression neutral despite her discomfort with the suggestion. I'll keep that in mind, sir. After the transmission ended, Marina found herself troubled by the direction of the conversation. Earth Command strategic thinking mirrored the very approach they feared from the VAR, looking for advantages, leverage points, vulnerabilities to exploit. Yet her experiences over the past weeks had revealed complexities in both species that defied simple categorization. The VAR were indeed warriors, but also mathematicians, artists, philosophers in their own way. Humans were peacekeepers, but carried the capacity for terrible violence. Both had been shaped by unforgiving worlds that demanded strength, yet both had found ways to create beauty amidst harshness. Her contemplation was interrupted by the arrival of Jur, the JTH diplomat. Ambassador Carter. They greeted her with a respectful gesture. The High Speaker has asked me to convey their personal appreciation for your exhibition. It has shifted perspectives among several key Commonwealth factions. That's welcome news, Ambassador Jur. The JTH's translucent skin rippled with subtle communication markers. I should also mention, not officially, of course, that your interactions with Representative Atul have not gone unnoticed. There are those who find it significant that the two most martially capable species might find common ground. Is that concern or approval I'm hearing? Marina asked directly. Both, perhaps. The Commonwealth has always been dominated by garden world perspectives. Some believe a balance is overdue. Jur's mouth parts moved in what Marina recognized as their equivalent of a diplomatic smile. Change comes slowly to thousand-year institutions, but it does come. 2 days later, most delegations were preparing to depart Nexus Station. The Commonwealth Council sessions had concluded, and representatives were returning to their homeworlds to report outcomes and prepare for the next diplomatic cycle. Marina found Atul in one of the station's observation lounges, his massive form silhouetted against the viewport that displayed the swirling nebula beyond. The lounge was otherwise empty. Few other species ventured into spaces the VAR frequented. Representative Atul, she greeted him, joining him at the viewport. Ambassador Carter, he acknowledged. Your delegation departs soon? Tomorrow. The Commonwealth has assigned Earth an official diplomatic suite on Nexus for our permanent representatives, but the initial delegation returns to report directly. Atul nodded. Similar arrangements for the VAR. I will remain as senior representative, but most return of Vargath. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the cosmic dust clouds drift in patterns disturbed by the gravity of distant stars. This exhibition has changed things, Marina finally said. Not dramatically. Institutional change never happens that quickly, but perceptibly, Indeed, the VAR delegation has received communications from species that previously avoided direct contact, requests for technological consultation, even trade negotiations. Similar developments on our side. Several Commonwealth species have expressed interest in Earth's environmental remediation technologies. Atul turned slightly to face her. The Deathworlders becoming desirable rather than merely tolerated. An unexpected development. Perhaps not so unexpected, Marina suggested. Harsh environments forge resilience, innovation, determination. Those qualities have value beyond combat applications. Qualities the Garden Worlders lack. Not lack, simply expressed differently. They evolved for cooperation rather than competition. That created stable societies, but perhaps limited certain forms of advancement. Atul made a sound that Marina had come to recognize as thoughtful agreement. The Commonwealth may benefit from our different perspectives if they can overcome their fear of them. Fear often stems from misunderstanding, Marina noted, which is why continued exchanges like our exhibition matter. You believe in this diplomatic approach genuinely, Atul observed. It wasn't a question, but his tone conveyed subtle surprise. I do. Earth's history taught us the limitations of force as a primary strategy. Violence has its place, but sustainable advancement requires cooperation. A human perspective, Atul replied, but without dismissal. The VAR tradition holds that strength must lead, but perhaps strength takes many forms. Marina smiled slightly. Now that sounds like a diplomatic perspective. Perhaps I've been contaminated by exposure to Commonwealth thinking. Atul rumbled, his scales shifting in what Marina now recognized as amusement. Or perhaps you're adapting, as any good Deathworlder would. Their conversation was interrupted by an automated announcement indicating that the station was beginning its night cycle. Around them, the ambient lighting dimmed to accommodate species with diurnal rhythms. We should conclude for the evening, Atul suggested. Your physiology requires regular rest cycles, does it not? Unfortunately, yes. Another evolutionary compromise, Marina acknowledged. Before I go, though, I wanted to confirm our continued communication channels once we both return to our regular duties. The secure diplomatic frequency has been established. My authorization will ensure your transmissions reach me directly. Good. Marina hesitated, then extended her hand in the human gesture of farewell. It's been an educational experience, Representative Atul. After a moment's hesitation, Atul extended his much larger hand, carefully adapting the gesture to accommodate the difference in their physiology. Indeed, Ambassador Carter, perhaps the first of many. As Marina turned to leave, Atul spoke again. Marina. It was the first time he had used her personal name. There's a VAR saying, those who survive the same storm recognize one another by the look in their eyes. I believe our species have much to learn from one another. Marina nodded, understanding the significance of the sentiment from a VAR warrior. We have a similar saying on Earth. It takes one to know one. Until our next communication, Atul. As she walked away, Marina reflected on the unexpected journey of the past weeks. When she had been assigned to represent humanity to the Commonwealth, she had prepared for countless diplomatic scenarios, but finding kinship with a species as seemingly alien as the VAR had never been among them. Yet here they were, two species from worlds that tried their best to kill them, finding common ground among the Garden Worlders who would never truly understand what that meant. The road ahead would be complex, filled with the competing interests of their respective leaderships and the ever-present suspicions of the Commonwealth. But something fundamental had changed. The VAR were no longer the only Deathworlders in a galaxy of peaceful species. Humanity had joined them in that unique category. And while their evolutionary paths had created profound differences between them, the core experiences of fighting for survival against overwhelming odds had forged a connection that transcended biology. It wasn't friendship exactly, not yet, but it was recognition. Recognition that neither species walked alone among the stars anymore. And for species forged in the crucible of death worlds, that might be enough to start with.